Evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. My name is Serena Longo, and on behalf of Harvard Bookstore and Boston Review, I'm so pleased to welcome you to this evening's special program, Writing Our Ancestors. In just a moment, I'll turn you over to Boston Review editors Adam McGee, Ed PAVLIĆ, and YEOH Rodriguez, who will be kicking off our program this evening. But first, just a quick note that in just a moment, I will be posting the harvard.com link to purchase the Boston Review issue Ancestors in the chat box. So that's the way to pick up this really great issue. Your purchases and financial contributions really make this author series possible, and now more than ever, support the future of a landmark independent bookstore. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. We sincerely appreciate your support. And of course, as you may have experienced in virtual gatherings, these last, several months, technical issues may arise. If they do, we'll do our best to resolve them as quickly as possible. Thank you for your patience and understanding. And so now I'm so pleased to introduce our moderators this evening. Adam McGee is the arts editor of Boston Review, before which he was acting managing editor of Transition magazine. His poetry has recently appeared in Raleigh Review, Painted Bride, Memorious, and Cimarron Review, among others. Ed PAVLIĆ, is the contributing arts editor at Boston Review. He is Distinguished Research Professor of English and African American Studies at the University of Georgia and author of 11 books and pieces which have appeared in over 60 magazines. IVELISSE Rodriguez is also a contributing arts editor at Boston Review. Her debut short story collection, Love War Stories, is a 2019 Penn Faulkner finalist and a 2018 Forward Reviews Indies finalist. She has published fiction in the Boston Review, Obsidian, Quelly, the Bilingual Review, Asterix, and other publications. We're so delighted to host this event this evening. Thank you so much to everyone who is a part of it, and to all of you for being here. Adam, the digital podium is yours.
Thanks so much, Serena. It's such a pleasure. I'm the editor of the Arts and Society section of Boston Review. It's such a cool project. We are interested in publishing work at the intersection of kind of civic concerns and concerns about democratic participation and social life and the arts. And we really feel like the arts have such an important place in that conversation about how society should function, what it means to be a person in society, in history. We publish new poetry for free most weeks on Fridays on our website. We also publish new fiction and criticism at least a couple of times every month. Everything that we do for the project, even the stuff that's in our books, ends up going on our website for free. You never have to pay anything to enjoy it. But if you do want to pay and support us, we publish these beautiful, perfect bound annual anthologies. So we're celebrating ancestors tonight. Last year, we did this wonderful book called Allies, and those can be ordered through Harvard Bookstore. We also are a member-supported organization, Boston Review, of which Arts and Society is kind of one corner. Just generally does really awesome books and articles about political participation and philosophy, basically a kind of left-leaning, everything that you might be interested in knowing. And we depend on the support of our members and donors and charitable grants. So if you enjoy tonight's event and you want to know more about what we're doing, you can go to bostonreview.net, enjoy everything that we do for free. And if you feel so led, it would be wonderful if you could support us by becoming a member, joining our newsletter, donating any amount of money at all that you feel like you can. Anything that you do is a great support. Our contests are open right now also. You can enter those. The theme of this contest for this year for both fiction and poetry is repair, a very timely concern. So please check it out. Head over to our website after the event tonight. I'm gonna go ahead and kick it over to Ed PAVLIခြ, who's gonna just talk a little bit for like 2 minutes about the theme of the Ancestors book. and then we'll just get right into the reading. We have 5 wonderful readers tonight. Each person's going to read for about 12 to 15 minutes. In between, I'll just pop on with extremely brief bios for them. But if you want to read their full bios, you can just go onto the event page and you can see all of their information about their books and where to buy them. So Ed, over to you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Adam. And thanks to Harvard Books for hosting, the Boston Review for all the wonderful support, and to our great readers or hosts, and of course to everybody who's tuned in to listen and to be with us tonight. Just want to say a few words about how the issue Ancestors came into being. Maybe 2 years ago, as it started out as an idea, and kind of under the umbrella of Toni Morrison's essay from the early 1980s, Ancestor. She was thinking about the role of the ancestors in the creative imagination, and so the point for us was to envision the literary as a web of challenging and sustaining connection more than as a venue for individual distinction. To claim an ancestor is to play host to a spirit. And so to work with the consciousness of ancestry is to play host to many spirits. I think Toni Morrison thought in that essay, Rootedness, the ancestor as foundation, that awareness to meditate on the spirits we host situates a literary imagination, a person, in an open and engaged relationship to the present world and worlds, and to future world and worlds, as well as to ancestral ones in the past. So here with us tonight, we've got 5 great hosts to spirits, and I'm looking forward to meeting all of them. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Ed. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first reader tonight, Chisway Fonza. He won our 2020 Boston Review Annual Poetry Contest, which was selected by Alexis Pauline Gumbs. His winning poems use biography, ekphrasis, hybrid forms such as film scripts, and a hefty dose of dark humor to explore Zambia's colonial and post-colonial struggles. We're not the only people who think he's incredible. He's having an amazing year. His book, The Reinhardt Frames, was selected as the 2020 winner of the Sillerman First Book Prize for African Poetry. And it just came out like 2 weeks ago, so check it out. And I will turn it over to him. Thank you so much for starting us out tonight, Chiswayo.
Thank you. So happy to be here with these amazing, brilliant people. I'm gonna read a couple poems. 2 of them will be the ones featured in the Boston Review's Ancestors edition. Taste of Cherry, Abbas Kiarostami, 1997. On a drive with Mr. Badi in his tan Land Rover, silence grazes our ears, leaving our mouths half open, our throats letting out small clearings. The roads ahead wind into Mobius strips, Mr. Badi's hands loosely grabbing the wheel. I look to the Rover's tinted windows, wondering if we appear like Schrödinger's cat to other drivers, but I know it is the ostrich syndrome holding my silence when he asked me to pour 20 spadefuls of earth on his body in a hole he dug. On a street, discreet as our intent, searching for Mr. Badi's perfect burial, the lakefront scent curls around us, retreating me to sore summers, the tension I developed against water after a friend drowned, a pack of boys tightly bound as a tin of sardines, the soda cans in brown paper bags we carried to give us the mysticism of winos, the weight of Slaughter and Son Funeral Home sign tugging at our collars. A death has occurred, or is near. The brown and orange liquid we poured on fish combed by waves to shorelines, their bodies braised by seagull beaks, eyes sinking into their skulls. We stuffed half-lit little cigarettes inside them so their musk would not offend our noses. I don't want to give you a gun to kill me. I'm giving you a spade, Mr. Badi says. Just pretend you're farming and I am manure to spread at the foot of crops. We reach a stoplight. My eyes expand to the bus that ran over the neighbor's daughter, the mother running to scattered limbs, attempting to sew back the severed child. I stared in wonder, thinking it was possible. This city is a burial. Why do you choose to live? The next poem I'll be reading will be one of the poems from the Ancestors edition. It's titled Notes Toward a Biography of Henry Tayali, a Picha Kucha. The Village, silkscreen print. I was born with a language seared on my tongue. I sipped from my father's bottle of pale ale as he rocked me to sleep. I have starved a mad dog until it could learn to kneel to me. I have held a chicken down before my grandmother cleaved its neck clean. I ate its body whole, sometimes chewing the bones. Boo, scrap metal. I was summer of love at Victoria Falls, Zamrock the culprit, bodies whirling to Port Ngozi, and the Jaya of apartheid farther south and being over the edge of independence. What was freedom if not our bodies thrust from ourselves and we trying to catch them in our rested dances? Regina in my dreams, stencil sketch. I pull a petal off a blue curiosa. You blossom from its edges, bees gossiping around you, the rattle in your legs, a barefooted dance in white sand, a child's delicate step on his mother's back. I want to learn to pronounce your body, fold your name at the back of my mouth. Untitled, Oil on Hardboard. The canvas begins with no paint or name attached. I go back to my birth in Serenge by the Nasulu Caves when Zambia was Northern Rhodesia. My wells winnowed like Wilson Snipe, the scene where my father held me as if I was artifact, rooms that coated us into primary colors as we tugged against our skin. Herd boy, scrap metal. The West was calling my name, Kawunda's dream to show the African has imagination. I longed for Paris or Florence, but settled for Germany, a Staatliche Kunstakademie Düsseldorf. I learned their language, read and studied their canon, from Caspar David Friedrich to Adolphe von Manzel, enough to annoy me civilized. People in the summer, oil on canvas. At the touch of a paintbrush or chisel, before I approached the canvas, block of wood or scrap metal, my anxiety was that I saw the body as Western. I was trying to get away from myself, so I turned to the abstract, the splotches of color-coded bodies to hide beggars, huts, villages, and the African. Unfinished self-portrait with Brother Bright Tayali, stencil sketch. We grind our bodies on the rise, lick last night's fog from our lips, rub the crude visions captured from our eyes and muzzle our mouths until screams or swelling moans exhaust themselves. Recycle the carnage into rage and the courage it needs to blossom, the dismal loneliness required to live or leave this life. The other side of the bar, woodcut. Sometimes the night is generous and I don't drown as much. Enough Monkoyo courses through me, a drop more, and I pass over to the other side where I become pantomime for my body strung out at the corner of the bar. Silence subdues me. Listen, I want to leave this country something other than my body. Attempt at an abstract painting, oil on canvas. I was trying to understand my country in the erasure. Women whose features I did not define and left as polka dots with head wraps or chitenges around their waists. Was it shame that defined me, hiding in the edges of my art, to make room for universal appeal, to be regarded as an artist erased of race, a measure of cooking oil, woodcut. Is modernity shedding ourselves to become exotic fixtures upon lips of Western critics? I remain a son of my country. I am a fragment of it, a particle. My art is concerned with the suffering of the people. I want it to be the echo of that suffering. I see the problems of the continent. I am recording what I and my people feel, but I do not attempt to provide answers. Leica SLR, negative film strips. A child eating cassava, Regina's twisted mouth cursing me in a mixture of Nyanja, Bemba, and Tonga. David Livingstone's statue, Regina dancing with a white cloth in her left hand, a man burning a kwacha note, a plate of Shima and Kapenta, Lusaka at night, littered in variations of light splotches and dark voids. The beggar, woodcut. I was thinking of the man I saw in Kitwe, resting at the side of a dirt road. He reached his hands to the sky, pretending to fluff one of the clouds before sleeping. Maybe he dreamed about finding a country, one not landlocked. His hands outstretched to reach his people, each of them singing in varied tones of an insatiable hunger. I'm gonna read an excerpt, a couple excerpts from the other poem, Jibril Diop Mambedi's Scene Description. Just a quick note, Jibril Diop Mambedi was a Senegalese film director. We wanted freedom, but we got democracy. Hugh Masekela. Scene 12, tight shot. The camera elevates from the bottom of their bed to a parallel scale of the two. The girl reaches for a radio at bedside, tuning in to Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation. Color re-enters as Zamrock slowly seeps into the scene. Blackfoot's running plays as their bodies become blurred and naked under the stream of moonlight entering through the window. He kisses her belly button, calls it a compass, following its southernmost trail. He tells her, your skin is beautiful, how one might just mistake pollen for cinnamon. She lifts his head gently to her face and kisses him. She says, I'm learning how to take care of flowers, to not worry about the carnations as much as the lilies. He wonders how much less is he in the dark, his mind still in northern Rhodesia, landlocked country. God save the queen still slides on his tongue when he speaks. She will say she used to belong to a nation, but he kept a record of her raptures, so she dissolved it. The moonlight would shine brighter, revealing parts of his body he once clothed. He would think, I must possess myself. She would ask what nation he belongs to. His answer, her body, a ruthless allegiance, to claim her as a country, call her a nation, carve a kiss on her collarbone and call it a flag. She would tell him independence exacerbates the abrasions of a country, to ask a nation why its flag bears red, the thought of freedom as an open wound. Silence could be useful if he knew its cadence. Maybe the fourth wall should be broken to invite others into his discomfort. Or maybe they remain as is, sinking back into bed where he learns making love is immigrating to someone, a citizen who feigns to be a refugee under the tender weight of skin and its nudging, the unpronounceable pleas of the mouth soaring into an anthem he imagines his, to sustain the borders of her body or coalesce the floor into deep country before they are lulled to sleep. His dream of a nation as suspended and ethereal as her weight next to his. Camera pulls away into a long shot. The focus blurs. Thank you.
Thank you. That was lovely. Thank you so much. I'm IVELISSE Rodriguez, and I'm the newest contributing arts editor for the Boston Review. I was also the fiction contest judge for the 2020 Ahora Estrada Short Story Contest. And I chose YEOH Jo-ANN's story, Dog, Tiger, Horse, as the winner. YEOH grew up in Malaysia and lives in Singapore, where she works in project management. In 2018, her first novel, Impractical Uses of Cake, won the Epigram Books Fiction Prize, one of Singapore's top fiction prizes. And her short stories have been included in Singaporean anthologies, such as Best Singaporean Short Stories, Volume 3. She is currently working on her second novel and a collection of short stories exploring the themes of modernity, food, and family in Southeast Asia. In her winning story, Dog, Tiger, Horse, YEOH sweeps us into the things that we will remember on sleepless nights, the what ifs of our lives, the way that humans break each other, those things left unsaid, and the secrets we carry. This is the kind of story that clutches at your throat and makes your heart race because you know a human collision is afoot. YEOH targets the heart and never wavers. Thank you, YEOH, for being with us here tonight and reading from your work.
Hi, thanks, IVELISSE. I'm really pleased to be here tonight. Thank you very much for having me, guys. So I'm going to read from my story, Dog, Tiger, Horse, and it's, so I'm going to read one part of it. Yeah, so here we go. Tiger. The window is open. You are under the bed, screaming. Outside, the wind rips through the trees and the rain smashes down on the roof. Lightning, thunder. I close the window, but you cry on. The next morning, you apologize. You are 15 and you are embarrassed. I don't understand, Mama. What's wrong with me? I have watched you grow up with a fear of thunderstorms. I keep silent, but I buy us a cake to share after dinner. A small one with coconut, the kind you like. What's the occasion? Your sister is always suspicious when she sees cake at a table. She likes cake, but she knows it is your favorite and not hers. What are you making up for, Mama? Your sister is a clever girl, far cleverer than you will ever be. But she smiles to show me that she's joking, and I allow it. For marrying you to Atu, I tell her. Atu is the boy who comes in twice a week to scrub the floors and clean the garden. Your sister shrieks and laughs, and I feel a flutter of guilt. But she has forgotten her question, and everyone must look down on someone. It gives us hope. I know why you are afraid of thunderstorms, but I will not explain. I would rather take coins from my box and buy you cake. When the engineer asks your father if he can marry your sister, even your grandmother is proud. She pats your sister on the cheek, saying how good it is to have a clever girl in the house, forgetting that 2 years ago she refused to continue paying the clever girl's school fees and that the clever girl gave up her place at a teaching college to work at a bookstore. Your sister has not forgotten, but she smiles and says thank you, so pleased with her engagement that for a moment she forgets her vow to spit into your grandmother's face on the day she leaves the house. It's a good thing your sister kept her temper. Even the cleverest girls cannot spit into money, and we cannot pay for the wedding without your grandmother's help. It's your fault for having a daughter. In her sitting room in the front of the house, your grandmother does not offer me tea or even water. She knows I'm here to beg. You tiger women, so stubborn. She has said this to me more times than I can count, but she knows I have to listen. Should have given the child away, like I told you. What use is a girl? In the end, I give her what she wants. I kneel down in front of her and bow, lower and lower, until my forehead touches the cold marble floor. I weep. I beg. Your father is waiting for me when I return to our room. Too much of a coward to ask his mother himself. Did she say yes? I tell him there is enough for a small wedding. The next day, I sell my mother's jewelry, except a small ring. I am saving that for your wife. But first, I must buy happiness for my clever girl. I could have been a clever girl myself. When the first of the Japanese bombs fell on Penang, my father stopped us from going to school. And when the war was over, there was no question of going back. So I married your father, came to live in this house. The house was tired long before I arrived, peeling paint, all the best furniture sold, no servants left. Your grandfather's stores were closed during the war. The Japanese took everything except the stores themselves. In more prosperous times, your grandparents would have picked a better bride for your father. But they wanted a girl whose family they could sneer at, a girl your father would not feel inferior to, someone who would do the housework. When the matchmaker first spoke to my parents, they decided it would be my eldest sister, your first aunt, who married your father. But she was born in the year of the rat, and your father in the year of the horse. Your grandmother put her foot down. Everyone knows that rats and horses make terrible matches. I am a tiger and a horse, a strong match. Tigers, horses, and dogs are allies bound by the stars and the elements. They understand each other. They are stronger together. That is what the fortune tellers say. If you ask me, it is all nonsense. But you are not asking me. You are a child. But you must already know from watching us that good marriages have nothing to do with astrology. But good weddings start with a good dress. And that is what your sister must have. While she's at work, we will go to the fabric store in town to buy the best silk I can afford with the money from selling the jewelry. Your grandmother and aunts give us the usual incurious arch looks on our way out as we walk through the dark central corridor of the house and past your grandmother's sitting room. They are sitting around her marble mahjong table, drinking tea, munching on dried lotus seeds. Going out? Nothing to do? Your Sakor, your father's younger sister, is my least favorite member of this nest of vipers. You've ironed my dress for tomorrow. Hold on. Have you cleaned my room? I dropped my powder case yesterday. Your Tuakor, your eldest aunt, would not recognize a broom or a dustpan if we showed these to her. For dinner, I am thinking of fish. Atu will fetch one. What your grandmother means is that I'd better be home in time to cook it. I assure everyone that their rooms have been cleaned, their clothes ironed, that I will be back at 5 to begin cooking dinner. 2 hours is not much time to get to town and back and buy everything we need, but we must try. And if we are a little late, your grandmother's fish can wait. It has nowhere else to be. Men are like that. You are a woman. Adapt. My mother refuses to hear any more stories. You are a newly married woman. In time, you will understand. You will learn. This is not reassurance. She is only telling me the end of my story. Maybe things will be better when there are children. When your sister is born, I wait for your father to become the kind of man who wants to be at home, who works hard, to stop the drinking, the gambling, the late nights. When you were born, I wait for him to realize we are our own family now, that we need to move out of this house and into a home of our own. I wait for him to want to be a better man, a good example for his son. That you are born in the year of the dog delights your grandmother. She leans over your cradle when you are a month old, when she is convinced you will live. Dog, you complete the trinity. You will bring your father the horse and your mother the dog, the tiger closer, and you will be stronger together. But you and your sister are only children, and as my mother keeps telling me, he is only a man. The sewing machine is the only thing I own when I arrive at this house, along with the 10 bolts of cloth that are my brother's wedding gift to me, some of my mother's jewelry, and the clothes on my back. The women of the house take the cloth. You won't have anywhere to wear silks to. They let me keep the sewing machine. Let her make her own clothes. As it is, she's already an extra mouth to feed. And the jewelry, quite poor quality. On my trips to the market, I stop by the old tailors and collect cut-up fabric that I put together into dresses in the evenings after dinner. In time, I make more complicated clothes in cuts I will never wear myself. I learned to make leg of mutton sleeves, a sheath dress. I mastered the 3-inch cheongsam collar. I put all the money the tailor pays me in a small wooden box. Most months, I take most of it out again. Your father's allowance will not stretch to cover his evening entertainments and all the things a growing family needs. Books, shoes, socks, underwear, bus fare. Your grandmother pays the school fees and complains every month. I ask the tailor for more work. When my eldest sister, your first aunt, first tells me about your father's other entertainments, I realize how little holds my world together. You are only 7. Your sister has just turned 14. And your father is hopeless. Do you know where your husband was last night? That mahjong place. As always. Wrong. My friend saw him go into a hotel. I shake my head. He works at a hotel. My sister takes my hand and sighs. Not that one. Another one. On Love Lane. Your father is exactly the kind of man, callous enough and foolish enough to conduct an affair on Love Lane, where all the rich businessmen keep their mistresses. He probably thinks this somehow makes it acceptable being in the territory of other philanderers. Sui was with him. Sui, your father's best friend since boyhood. Of course, another rich honey-tongued boy. Of course, they decided together that taking mistresses was a thing that all men did. When I leave your first aunt's house, before I head home to cook the family dinner, I go to the tailor and ask him for more work. It takes years, but living in this house has taught me patience. The waiting is easy. While I squat in the back garden, sweating, scrubbing the family's laundry under the trickle of the tap that no one wants to repair, I think of all the places I will go. While I pluck chickens clean in the dark, damp kitchen, I dream of windows in a room of my own. While you and your sister sleep, I sew and sew and sew. When there is enough money in my box, I leave. I decide that the gods and my children will forgive me. I take my sewing machine and my mother's jewelry and the clothes on my back. I cannot sleep. Outside, the rain is crashing down on the roof. Your husband is here? I go to my sister's front door and look out. Your father is at the gate, holding an umbrella. You are with him. Lightning lights up the street in your faces. Now thunder follows like a monster released into the sky. You are frightened. You cling to the bars of the gate and you shake them. You cry out again and again. I cannot hear you, but I cannot bear not to. I see the end of my story now. I go to my sister and tell her I'm going home. The next day, she sends my sewing machine back to the old house. I'm using it now to finish your sister's wedding dress. She looks like a queen. She will look like a queen. And I hope he will treat her like one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanne. That was phenomenal. If you want to hear the end of the story, there are 2 more parts of that story. They're both as amazing as the beginning that we just heard. You can get a copy of Ancestors so you won't be kept in suspense. It's a wonderful story. Thank you so much. The next person I'm really delighted to be able to introduce is TYEHIMBA JESS. His arresting work is so beautiful that the reader has so much to sort of love about it. But part of what I love about it is that his work takes Black history and places it at the center of American history where it belongs. And he does all of this through deeply original use of the Black musical tradition, in particular jazz and blues, to offer a lyric sensibility that is completely unique to him. If you have read his work, you'll know how phenomenal it is. His Olio won the 2017 Pulitzer Prize for Poetry. Before that, his book Leadbelly won the National Poetry Series. We were incredibly, incredibly lucky to have this hybrid sort of poem essay in Ancestors from him, and we're so delighted to have him here tonight to read some of it. So thank you so much, TYEHIMBA.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here with these fantastic writers, and I'm really glad to be in the room, the virtual room with all of y'all. I'm going to say that the title of this is Ancestral Wealth, the Sacred Black Masculine in My Life. The term sacred Black masculine, I have borrowed from Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, and him in conjunction with Dr. Tommy Curry are proponents of burgeoning field of Black male studies. So here we go. Ancestral wealth, the sacred Black masculine in my life. I can't hit the page without hearing Hendrix. His psychedelically blues guitar journeys I bathed in for at least an hour every day for 4 or 5 years of my early 20s until I'd memorized every solo. Him fingering feedback and folding wah-wah into sonic ambulances of soul. I can't hit the page without the echo of Muddy Waters' Mississippi guitar that found its way to an electrified Chicago, without hearing the I'm a man foundational blocks with his legendary harmonica men, Little Walter, Carrie Bell, James Cotton, Junior Wells, Big Walter Horton, George Smith. I hear their tremolo and bravado, The shuffles, train tracks, and galactic howls seeping from their mouths through reeds and between their fingers, and I ache to bring it to the page. I bleed to breathe it into stanzas. I can't hit the page without Yusef Lateef and John Lee Hooker and Curtis Mayfield blazing across the chorus. I can't hit the page without Prince on stage at the Super Bowl, strutting in the rain, singing his signature into the far-off lightning. I can't hit the page without Al Green's falsetto grinding against his acoustic guitar, making the angels grit their teeth with jealousy. I can't hit the page without Coltrane walking the bar with his horn, scraping the blues into abstraction from beneath a heated spoon. I can't hit the page without Art Tatum's cataractic cosmic vision burning up the 88s with blinding speed. I can't hit the page without Mingus and Diz and Marley and Fred McDowell and Howlin' Wolf whisper growling in my ear to know their names with mine. I can't hit the page without Amiri, 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 Amiri. I heard the Lightning Hopkins, the Sun Ra, the Ellington and Basie and Eiler. He firestormed to the stage when he roared and laughed and proclaimed. I can't hit the page without Langston Hughes in one pocket, Ernest Gaines in another, and Leon Forrest on the nightstand. I can't hit the page without James Baldwin and August Wilson on the passenger side with Sam Greenlee in the back talking shit and all us laughing. Many, so many of them were not always gentlemen or gentlemen. Many, so many of them were imperfect, flawed, at times dangerous, needy, selfish, and small. Many, so many of them were many times intractable and stubborn, peevish and rude, rambunctious, troublesome, inappropriate, wrong. But when they put their demons down, or even trick those demons to help pick up their swords of imagination and will to help do the dirty, lovely black sorcery of fully being, they were doing service to the business for which they were sent to this planet. And many, so many of them have taught me nobility with the words unsaid or the truth laid just so. And many, so many of them have split themselves open with sacrifice when nobody was watching. And many, so many of them took it and never threw back in spite. And many, so many of them were larger than anything they'd ever imagined and propped multitudes on their shoulders, king-like, with Malcolm defiance, or just by safeguarding their families' homes. They knew that being Black man in America means to always be under suspicion, to embody the bullseye of an American tradition that no other demographic has been so thoroughly tied to, being tied to a tree by a throbbing, festive mob and then castrated, whipped, and burned alive like a torch lighting up the country's cavernous, carnivorous heart. That more than any other demographic, they could be accused of the unthinkable with no evidence and forced to pay with life or years of life. These men realized that there is no way out of the maelstrom, but there was a way into themselves that no one else could fully capture or own. Their voices playing out on microphones or keyboards or finger pads or strings or drums, or even through a tiny pencil in a tiny cell staring at 47 pictures taped to a wall. And to speak from that kind of will, that kind of pig-headed hope, strutting ambition and desire to know yourself through pure expression is a kind of love. A love that just might turn a life around, that a man can build a life around. I couldn't hit the page without my home folk, like Detroiter Dudley Randall, who told me once just before I left the D for good that maybe writing was what I needed to do. I couldn't hit the page without another native Detroiter, Haki Matabuti, whose tracks I followed to Chicago and whose bookstore was the first Black-owned bookstore I'd ever bought a book from, Dudley Randall's The Black Poets Anthology. And I couldn't hit the page without another Detroiter, Robert Hayden, who peered through his Coke bottle glasses and, so some tell me, would sometimes cry when he'd ask the question, what do I know of love's austere and lonely offices? What do I know of love's austere and lonely offices? I loved it when Miles turned his back to the audience, because I knew that he was about to play his liberation and not buck for the crowd. I loved it when Muhammad Ali asked Ernie Terrell over and over and over the question that would define his life, what's my name? And pounded each syllable of his identity into America's TV sets. I loved it when Walter Payton bulldozed and ballet danced his way across end zones because I knew he was running toward greatness, weaving through obliteration with every yard. I loved it when Richard Pryor laughed against his smoked up demons, when Red Fox told me to wash my ass. I love Mingus about as much as I love the austerity of Sterling Plump's poems that taught me how the blues still lives in our stories. About as much as I love the flair in Sammy Davis's tap dance and the moon dust in Michael Jackson's walk. About as much as I love the loneliness in Marvin Gaye's falsetto. About as much as I love the lushness of Charles White's paintings and Romare Bearden's collages. I know the austerity of my father's love, that it is hard and thorny like a stubborn, starved weed. I don't know the loneliness of being born in 1929 and growing up Black in Greenville, South Carolina, in the dead weight of America's Depression. I don't know the austere loneliness of my grandfather, who was drafted in World War II despite having 3 kids to support. But I think I know a bit of the withers in his deep silences that he passed down to my father. I don't know the kind of austerity that was branded onto my dad between Southern lynchings and Northern segregation, and I can only imagine his loneliness navigating to Detroit in a PhD in chemistry by age 27. I don't know the austerity of raising a family in the 70s and 80s, and I only know of his loneliness now when he calls me from Detroit after months in quarantine, eager to show the love he'd hidden for so many years, like a secret bank account with passcodes he can barely remember. But I know that I can't hit the page without him either. That it was his newspapers, magazines, and books that I was reading for fun as a kid in my first library, that I wish I had his level of sheer concentration when he studied or read. That I still have some of his stubborn nature when it's hard for me to tell him, I love you. I can't hit the page without all of them. All the pages and pages and pages of Black men I could mention here that whispered or screamed in my ear with the same desire to live honestly free. All these brothers, uncles, daddies, and pops, the sinners and the soulsters and the saints alike. I can't hit the page without hearing them at my elbow and in my ear, even when they fuck up terribly. And even when I'm trying not to envy how brilliant they be. You see, as Etheridge once told me, I know their style, they know mine. I am all of them, and they are all of me. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. That is phenomenal. I've probably read that 12 or 15 times at this point, but hearing you read it just so next level. Thank you so much. The next person I I'm so happy to be able to introduce is Domenica Ruda. She's the author of the New York Times bestselling memoir, With or Without You, which in part recounts her experience of being raised by a parent who struggled with addiction. And her novel, Last Days, which Boston Review was lucky to publish an excerpt of, was named by the New York Times as one of the best books of 2019. She's also a major figure in an organization called ESME, Empowering Solo Moms Everywhere, which is an incredible organization that gives solo moms the resources to thrive. And part of how they define thriving is to not have to sideline their artistic lives. So also check them out. I think it's just esme.com, esme.com. So Domenica, so happy to introduce you and looking forward to hearing you read.
It's so wonderful to be here. I think this is such a beautiful, beautiful collection of work, and I feel privileged to be a part of it. I'm going to read a few excerpts from my story, Companion Animals. I'm going to skip the beginning, start sort of in the middle, and all you need to know is the main character is a woman named Harriet who lives alone on a farm in a rural area north of Boston. And she has an autoimmune disease that keeps her out of commission for months at a time. And she has recently fallen in love with a waitress named Michelle. The Sunday before Labor Day, Harriet invited Michelle on a tour of her stables. Most of the horses she boarded these days were geriatric. Like aging parents in a nursing home, they'd been all but abandoned by their owners. Wealthy, punctilious people who emailed Harriet regularly but never visited the farm once their horse was settled in. Harriet took care of all the grooming and vet checkups. She fattened the scrawny ones and put the hefty ones on a diet. It was her policy to lay eyes on each of the horses at least once a day. She and Michelle drove around the pastures in an old golf cart, and Harriet called each horse by name. Carney and Luca shot long sideways glances from their shady spot under an elm. Luca trotted over when Harriet called him, but Carney, eyeing Michelle, remained close to the silent, voluptuous tree. Rowan, the chestnut mare, was easily bribed with a handful of oats, but when Michelle tried to stroke her neck, she sneezed haughtily and ran away. "I'm sorry." Harriet touched Michelle's shoulder lightly, then pulled her hand away, as though testing the temperature of a kettle on the boil. Michelle took her hand back and squeezed it. "I'm tougher than I look, hon." All of the horses had free range of Harriet's land, except for the oldest three, Holly, Lazarus, and Coltrane. They slept inside a stable and spent their days in the paddock nearest Harriet's house. Coltrane was a retiree from Suffolk Downs. His owners insisted he get an expensive store-bought feed, Harriet told Michelle with a little snort, though he'd eat anything you could put in a bucket. He'd gobble up wood chips and not know the difference, I swear. Lazarus was 29 and had respiratory problems. He was the only one Harriet kept blanketed, and she mixed corn oil in his feed. Holly didn't need anything except hay, but because she was pastured with the other two, Harriet left a scoop of Coltrane's feed in her bucket. "It just kills me," Michelle said. She gave Lazarus a good scratch on his withers. No one gives animals the credit they deserve. Harriet's house was furnished exactly as it had been before she was born. Every 5 years, she touched up the exterior paint, a stately white with dark green shutters. When she was healthy enough, she did most of the painting herself. Inside the house was neat and very dusty. Michelle picked up a photo from the mantel over the fireplace. It was a picture of Harriet, aged 12. She peered at the camera with the same brown bovine eyes she had now, the same limp blonde hair drawn like curtains to reveal her diffident smile. Michelle wiped the dust off the picture with her sleeve. "Aw, you were old even when you were young. You even got an old lady name," she observed. Harriet's face prickled. There was a shame in being seen by another as she saw herself. She didn't know how to respond. Before she could decide, Michelle said, Your parents were big drunks, weren't they? They liked their scotch, Harriet admitted. Mine too, Michelle said. Michelle spent that evening at Harriet's house, and 2 weeks later she moved in. This new girlfriend had a stable of her own, Harriet soon learned, and it was full of ex-lovers, men and women from the restaurant where Michelle worked, whom Harriet had never noticed in all her years eating there, and then many more friends and lovers who would drive all the way from Boston and Portland and Provincetown to spend the evening with them. They were rich, effusive people whose lives all seemed to unhinge without a regular dose of Michelle's blithe attention. They arrived unannounced as the sun set, bringing old and new significant others in tow, and big jugs of wine or loaves of zucchini bread from the farmer's market down the road. They made themselves at home with an ease that suggested some troubling facts. Home was wherever Michelle happened to be, and Michelle moved around a lot. I'm going to skip this sort of chorus of friends and lovers who are invading Harriet's house and get to one of them. Harriet has trouble with them, and get to one that's the most troubling, a friend named Bryce. Michelle's friend Bryce. Bryce was a dividends trader with muscular arms and tiny hands. He could be relied on to show up with venison or something he had recently killed. Harriet wanted to like him. She sincerely tried, but he was always trying to convince Michelle that she should go back to school. There was an urgency in these appeals that seemed to say more about him than her. He didn't so much as acknowledge the dogs who nosed in and out of their late-night dinners. Your pasture ornaments, he called the horses grazing the fields. They're companion animals, both to me and to each other, Harriet said. It had taken weeks of silent rehearsals to say this to him. Bryce uncorked another bottle of wine. You're just anthropomorphizing, he said. Then why does Ginger smile whenever she sees me? It's not a smile, Bryce said. It's the conditioned response of a parasite that senses its food source is near. Dogs are the most successful parasites in the world. They evolved in accordance with our narcissism. We see ourselves in the whites of their eyes, he said grandly. Sclera and the illusion of eye contact. I'd say dogs were brilliant if they weren't so dumb. There was a single crease running horizontally across his forehead, straight and rigid as a scar. It deepened when he got argumentative, which was whenever he drank, which was always. Animals played and fought and loved and dreamed, Harriet wanted to tell him. They made choices that had nothing to do with instinct or survival. Harriet was surer of this than of any other fact in her life. Gemini, the Palomino, would come to the defense of younger horses in her pasture, but horses who were older she let fend for themselves. When the German shepherd Biff had to be put down, Polly, the terrier, forsook his pile of blankets on the kitchen floor and slept outside for one night only. Polly circled the spot under the forsythia where Biff liked to bury his tennis ball and buried one of his own, an act the dog had never performed before and never since. If that's not a grieving ritual, I don't know what is, Harriet said. And I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thanks so much. That is great. As with Jo-Ann, there's a lot more of Domenica's story. It's in Ancestors, so get a copy so that you're not in suspense. The story takes a couple more really interesting turns before the end, and it's a really wonderful piece of writing. Thanks so much, Domenica. The last person that I have the pleasure of introducing tonight is kind of an out-of-body experience to be introducing Sonia Sanchez. One of my advisors in grad school was a Nigerian, and he often said this saying, "The greatest mask dances last." And so Sonia is our greatest mask tonight, and we're so happy to have her with us. She needs little introduction. She was a leading figure of the Black arts movement and a founder of African American studies in the American university system. She was awarded the 2001 Robert Frost Medal, which is one of the most prestigious awards that an American poet can receive. It's given in honor of a lifetime achievement, on top of which she has been a tireless activist throughout her life, both for Black people and for disenfranchised people in general everywhere. Her collected poems come out next month from Beacon Press, so make sure to pre-order a copy. I know that there's going to be a lot of stuff in it that is hard to get otherwise, so it'll be a really nice volume to have. And she's still doing the work. It's just astonishing how generous she is with her time. If you're at all interested in our contest, by the way, she's going to be judging our poetry contest this year on the theme of repair. So the opportunity to have Sonia Sanchez read your work is incredible. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to her. And it's possible, Sonia, that you got muted. And so if you just can look on your screen, towards the bottom, there should be a little button that looks like a microphone. And if you click on that, it will unmute you. Hold on just a minute. I think she's gonna get some help. I think she's gone to get her son to help with the technology, so she should be back in just a minute. In the meantime, I can just say that if you aren't already convinced to get Ancestors, the book, some other amazing pieces of writing that are in it. We have a recently rediscovered story by Binyavanga Wainaina, who had published this story really early in his career, and then it got lost, kind of. Oh, it looks like you're unmuted, Sonia.
Thank you. I'm so sorry about that.
No, I think it was something that maybe happened on our end, but we're so happy to have you. I'm going to go ahead and stop talking. Thank you so much.
I'm reading from a book called Does Your House Have Lions? It's a book that I wrote to my father and my brother. And at the beginning, it says, one day in the late 60s, I was on the phone with Rasan Roland Kirk and mentioned to him that just that day I had bought a house. He responded by asking, does your house have lions? I said, what? He said, lions, you know, like in front of a museum or the post office, you know, concrete lions. My house has lions. Get a house with lions. Joel Dawn, May 1993, from the Rasan Roland Kirk anthology. Sister's Voice. I began with my brother coming from a place called Birmingham, Alabama. This was a migration unlike the 1900s of Black men and women coming north for jobs, freedom, life. This was a migration to begin to bend a father's heart again, to birth seduction from the past, to repay desertion at last. Imagine him short and black, thin mustache draping thin lips. Imagine him country and exact, thin body, underfed hips, watching at this corral of battleships and bastards, watching for forget and remember, dancing his pirouette. And he came my brother at 17, recruited by birthright and smell, grabbing the city by the root with clean metallic teeth, commandant and infidel, pirating his family in their cell. And we waited for the anger to retreat. And we watched him embrace the city and the street. First, He auctioned off his legs, eyes, heart in rooms of specific pain. He specialized in generalized, learned New Yorkese and all profane, enslaved his body to cocaine, denied his father's signature, damned his sister's overture. And a new geography greeted him, the Atlantic drifted from offshore to lick his wounds, to give him slim transfusion as he churned, change, wore a new waistcoat of solicitor, antidote to his southern skin, ammunition for a young paladin, and the bars, the glitter, the light, discharging pain from his bygone anguish of young Black boy scared of the night. Sequestered on this new bank, he surveyed the fish, sweet cargoes, crowded with scales, feverish with quick sails, full sails of flesh, searing the coastline of his acquiesce, and the days rummaging his eyes, and the nights flickering through a slit of narrow bars, hips, thighs, and his thoughts labeling him misfit as he prowled, pranced in the starlit city, coloring his days and nights with gluttony and praise and unreconciled rights. That's my brother coming from a place called Birmingham, Alabama, not to love his family, but to destroy his family. And then I want to get to the section called Father's Voice. This is sister's voice, brother's voice, father's voice. The day he traveled to my daughter's house, it was June. He cursed me with his morning nod of anger as he filtered his callous walk, skip, hop, feet slipshod from 125th Street bars, face curled with odd reflections. The skin of a father is accented in the sentence of the unaccented. And then my father talks about himself. I was a Southern Negro man playing music, married to a high yellow woman who loved my unhurt face, who slept with me in Nordic beauty. I, prisoner since my birth to fear, I unfashioned, buried in an open grave of mornings unclapped with constant sight of masters fattened deck with my diminished light. This love, this first wife of mine died in childbirth. This phase of complex lace exiled her breath into another design, and I died, became wanderlust, demanded recompense from friends for my heartbreak, cursed the land for this new heartache, put her away with a youthful pause, never call her name again, wrapped my heart in gauze, became Romeo bound, applauded women as I squeezed their syrup, drank their stencil face, danced between their legs, placed my swollen shank to the world, became man distilled, early 20th century Black man fossil, fulfilled by women things, foreclosing on my life. Mother, where do I go before I arrive? She wasn't as beautiful as my first wife, this ruby-colored girl, insinuating her limb against my thigh, positioning her wild life, her non-virginal smell as virginal, her climb towards me with slow walking heels made me limp, made me stumble, made my legs squint until I stopped, stepped inside her footprint. I did not want to leave you, son. This flame, this pecan-colored festival requested me, not my child, your sister. Your mother could not frame herself as her mother, and I, absentee father, and I, nightclub owner, carefree, did not heed her blood. Did not see my girl's eyes, shade buckled down with southern thighs. Now, my 78 years urge me on your land. Now my predator legs pray broadcast no new nightmares, no longer Birdman of Cornerstone comes. I come to collapse the past while bonfires burn up your orphan's mass. I sing a dirge of lost Black Southern manhood, this Harlem man begging pardon, secreting old. And that's my father. And then I go to the part of the book where my brother speaks. When my brother will leave my house in Philadelphia, will come back after I explain to him all what happened to him as a child, and while indeed our father did come to a place called New York City only with his girls, 2 girls, and not his son. Brother's voice. There is nothing I do not comprehend. I have become a collector of shouts. Hold my ears, Father. I have come to mend our hearts, raise a glass, celebrate, root out lyrical slaughters, become your only son devout. I have become a lover of sweet water. I worship stone. I will not betray you, Father. Father's voice, steady your hand, old man. Do not trouble yourself with language. Stalk his wound. He is listening to your corpuscles, created the clap and thunder of a new sound. He has called your name, and old teeth are found. Can you hold me, son, as I rise from this whimper? Can you hear me, son, as I cross over this river? And then we hear in this section the ancestor's voice. Mayor, do you remember me, huh? When our teeth were iron, huh? Did you drum about me, hey? And not Babylon, hey? Did you take your weapon, huh? Rattle it on any mattress, hey? Till you became powerless, hey, 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 ha, 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 ha. Ancestor's voice, female. Do you remember me? Ah, yeah, yeah. When our womb were cerebral, yeah, 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 yeah. Did you dream about me? Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. And not betrayal. Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Did you take your coastal blood to any playground? Hey, ah, yeah, 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 yeah. To every resident clown. Ah, sister's voice. Let the spirit raise up echoes in my spine, brother. Let our histories bleed no boomerangs. Let my accent shrink the itch of undermine. Brother, let our mouths speak without harangue. Let my journey sing a path they sang. Oh, I will purchase my brother's whisper. Oh, I will reward my brother's tongue. Ancestor's voice, female. Have you prepared a place of honor for me? Have you recalled us from death, huh? Where is the mensum to state our history, huh? Where are the griots, the food, my fair breath, huh? Where is the morning path I crossed in good faith, huh? What terror slows your journey to this door, huh? Have you prepared a place for us to mourn? Ancestors' voice, male. Water from my feet, I return to you. Oceans from my eyes to drown your bones. I am turning my heart away from you. Hundreds of years have passed with no memorial stones. How can I forgive myself without the ritual horns? Your stool sits too long at this testimony. Your stool forgets the flesh of ceremony. And then my brother will speak, and he would talk about traveling to India. And he would come back home and come to my house in Philadelphia and talk about marriage. And then my brother's voice, when he returns back home to New York, sister, tell me about this cough I cough, all of my skin cradled in this cough, my body ancient as this white cough I cough, all day and night I'm haunted by this cough I cough, a snake rattles in my throat, this cough I cough, a screaming bonds my chest with cough, sister, an echo surrounds my lungs with this cough I cough. And my brother talks about being in the hospital, and he talks about when I come to see him and he checks himself out of the hospital. And then my father begins to remember his son. And when he can't reach his son, father's voice, I'm leaving this message on your voicemail. Your brother's back in the hospital, temperature 105. I've called his mother. She arrives tomorrow, wholesale. The doctors wait for me at every corner. They arrive with stationary voices tracking the sweat hive of his body, embroidering needles on his veins. I pray his corpuscles learn how to abstain. Father's voice, where to go? Where to go today? Where to have gone at some ago time when he was at play in the world. What kind of day is this where a son's body bleeds feces? What kind of day anoints his flesh with effigies? And this goes on until finally my brother begins to speak in Wolof. My brother, the ancestors are coming for him, and they look at him, and a female ancestor says, Jamaga Fanan, Male, look at his eyes, is he Asian? Female, Jamagafanan. Male, look at his hair, is he Indian? Female, Jamagafanan. Look at his cheekbones, is he Native American? Female, Jamagafanan. Look at his hands, is he African American? And then my brother will hear his ancestors, his family, male ancestor. Salam alaikum, hello, female. Nangadef, how are you? Male, salam alaikum, hello, brother. Mangafirek, I am well, brother. Dama Bugalek, I want to eat, brother. Dama Buganan, I want to drink. Male, female ancestor. Kaifi, African. Come here, African. Male, female. Kaifi, African. Come here, African, brother. Marginio, I am coming. Marginio, I am coming. Marginio, I am coming. Mm, mm, mm. That is a book called Does Your House of Lions? I edited a lot, but I talked about my brother coming from Birmingham, Alabama. I think my time is up, and he comes to wreck his family in New York City, and he visits my house in Philadelphia one day, and I tell him the real story of what happened to him. And you heard me read the part when he comes back to New York and asks forgiveness of his father, and then he goes to India to see Isa Baba. He comes back. He stays home for a while. He becomes ill. He's one of the first young men that we see in New York City at Lenox Terrace Hospital with AIDS. And then I visit him. I'm told I was away from home, and I was told that he was dying in the hospital. And I fly in and I go into his hospital room, as I say, and the ancestors have gathered around his bed, you know, and the ancestors remain there until he makes transition.
Oh my God, thank you so much, Sonia.
Thank
That
you,
was
my dear brother.
incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And that I can't think of a better way to end our program than with that reading. It's just amazing. Serena, I don't know if you want to come back on at this point.
I'm here. Hi.
Hey. Yeah, I mean, that's the end of our program. And thank you to all of our readers. I don't know if they want to turn their cameras back on, if they're still here. It was such a gift to hear from all of you tonight. And thank you for supporting this book and the work that we're doing. It means so much to be able to share this work with the world. So please, everybody, go on Harvard Bookstore's website, order this. You'll get it hopefully, you know, within a couple of weeks, and which by pandemic time is pretty amazing. And be in touch with us. We're always happy to hear from readers. We're easy to find, and it means a lot to us to know that people are reading the work and engaging with it. And also thank you so much to Harvard Bookstore for hosting this tonight. It's always wonderful to be able to partner with you, and it means a lot to have an institution like Harvard Bookstore in our community. I'm glad to be able to support the work that you're doing, and happy that you're staying afloat through all of this. It's no small feat, and it's wonderful to have you. Is there anything else you want to say to close us out?
Nothing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, go.
Oh, I was just going to say we feel very similarly about Boston Review and being able to partner with you folks. Our Boston Review partnered events throughout the pandemic, I mean, and before the pandemic as well, have just been some of the best that we've done. And I feel very proud of them, and so grateful for you guys bringing these incredible voices to our series. So thank you so much. Huge thank you to our incredible readers and our moderators this evening, and to all of you for being here and listening. yeah, and I'll turn things over to anyone who has any final words.
I just want to say thank you very much for putting this publication together and gathering us together. It's been really fulfilling being in this space today. So
Thank you so much. It's
Thank you, everyone.
thank you, and thanks to everybody who joined. We had about 100+ people, so it's really nice that so many people on a Thursday evening in the midst of world horrors were able to make some time to hear this work. So take care, everyone. See you in person, I hope, on the other side of this.
Good night. Be well.
Good night.
Bye-bye.